Hey, y'all, welcome to the Clock Tower. I'm Colton here with Brandon and Braden. It's time to start talking about BCS 2025. As this video goes up, we are just a couple of days away from Chicago Regionals, which all three of us will be at. And that's going to kick off BCS 2025-26. The lead up to Worlds begins here. The first three spots in Worlds will be determined this weekend. So we've got a lot to talk about. We usually do all of the decks as a two-part series. We're going to do that again. Part one is today. We're talking about the meta stuff, the most important stuff going into the season. And then in 2 weeks, we're going to talk about kind of everything else beyond that first tier. This year is a little bit different. Usually we talk about, like 4 to 6 lists that are the most important ones in the format. Coming into this season, we have a very different format than we've had in years past. This is a 2-deck format. There are 2 decks that matter, and everything else is chasing them. So we're going to talk about those 2 decks, and then we're going to talk about the 3 decks that all got hit that otherwise would have turned this into probably a pretty balanced top 5. But instead, they're kind of that second tier, maybe even lower. But we're going to talk about SDS, Quince, and Bunny Girl, and how they project going into this season. And then in 2 weeks, we'll talk about everything else. And there's a lot of everything else to talk about. So be sure to join us for that one. So we're going to start here with Bang Dream. It came on strong in the middle of the season. And once it was out, it was on a lot of teams. And even just in the last weekend, it was on something like a dozen teams between Philly, Spain, and Melbourne. Most people are on the bar Salvage, the bar Oblivionus into the Salvage Dolores with the cancel burns that can get passed on. You're also seeing the Tamori, which has a bit more of like a modular burn package. Doesn't have as high of a ceiling, but definitely can do a lot with its own kind of self-icy tail effect to burn. So I want to kick this over to Braden first, because Braden is kind of our resident Bang Dream player, has always been the resident Bang Dream player. Is this the best deck in the format, Braden? And if so, why?
Yes. This so the short answer is yes, this is the best deck in the format. So to get into that a little bit more though, I think the best way to do it is to look at what Bang Dream does at every level of the game and just see that it's broken beyond belief compared to everything else. So at 0, we have some key players. We have True Chihiri that also just has the benefit of potentially plussing stock. We have a really good on Death Riki that's in color, and we have the 0/0 that gains 3,000, locks down a circle on your opponent's board, and then has the 0/2 profile of killing one of your own characters off to top check for a character and adding it to hand. So the combination of these 3 cards allows for Bane Dream to really plus their deck at the 0 game. There's no real counterplay to it. There's no like I'm trying to score a reverse. There's no I'm trying to avoid like my Riki's on death, but I proc it myself anyway. It's flexible. It can be teched in and out pretty handedly as well. It's so much card advantage for a level 0 game that leads very strongly into the main concern in terms of just raw plussing. I will say it's not the absolute most selective level 0 game that we've ever seen. Its selection is actually comparable to something like just any set that has a normal search Riki, but it's just the raw amount of card advantage that it can generate is well beyond most other sets.
Well, it doesn't
That
even
raw
necessarily need to be perfect fixing at 0
Exactly.
because you're effectively running 8 copies of your
Yep.
level 1 combo.
Yeah, so that's what leads up super hard into this bar level 1 combo, which is the bread and butter of the set. Uh Effectively you get to run 8 copies because 4 copies of it change into the 4 copies of the actual combo. Combo itself doesn't read super impressive. It's just look at 4, choose a character, and you can either add it to hand or send it to stock. What we see is that when we have such a strong plussing level 0 game, is that we no longer need to commit resources to holding more hand. We can take like one lane of combo of plus to hand with the combo, and then we can use the other 2 lanes to start sending to stock. We do not over plus. We don't need to over plus. So we don't end up at that 8 hand size. The combo's off bar as well, so it's highly recurable. So having 8 copies means you could just do it again on subsequent turns. But the deck immediately, once it hits level 1, just starts going incredibly fast, putting cards into stock, putting like having the absolute best stuff you would want in your hand. It has trigger control off its brainstorm. So it can choose sometimes when it does and doesn't want to rip triggers. It swings in incredibly large for no reason. I think at if you do the full thing looking for power, it swings at like 9.5. Uh, right? Is it? Let's hear. It's 6, 7K with the climax, 8K from change, 9K. So it's 9K for no reason if you choose to take the stock and change. It lets you be way too efficient with your high resource early game. So the level 1 is very strong. You have climax assurance as well as an off level 1. Leading into your level 2 game, what are you looking for? What do they do better than other decks in the format? They have a 1 stock, 1 hand early play healer that gets around like say Grisai's anti-heal because it's a stock healer. The early play healer is egregious in like every sense of card balance for Weiss in terms of like what we've seen for Bushiroad pushing the threshold. This is where you start to really feel the oppression of the deck of Bang Dream because Bang Dream, the only real weakness of this deck is that it only runs like 5 to 6 soul triggers, maybe like 6 or 7, if depending on what techs you have at the top end and like how many 2/1 assist you run. It's swinging for 2/2/2 like every turn. It's not trying to win board. It's not trying to do anything like fancy or fun. It's just sitting there and outvaluing the opposition. The other notable thing, the 2/1 assist that sits in the back row that lets you maintain your field positioning for more early plays, as well as without you having to like neg to play over. Consistently allows you to get 2 to 3 heals off a turn at level 2. So we're looking at something like 8 Pants Ayakashi's healing capability, where you can have games where you heal 6, 7 times in the mid game while you're just waiting to drop this finisher that has deceptively long range on it. Top end is not the most explosive finisher we've seen. We've lived through Gura format. The Dolores just long enough and just good enough that Bang Dream absolutely loves using it. Having access to 2/1 stock swap as well makes this deck incredibly high range in terms of damage output. You can't just sit there and stock compress against it. Notably, one of the advantages that the Timoris has over the Dolores top end is that you go into blue, which allows you to run stock swap and Fumio, uh, which can get picked up by everything effectively. Orisa Fumio is music trait, so all this stuff keys off music trait. So that's fully grabbable. But Dolores doesn't really need to run the Fumio. It'd rather run like the Encore Step Burn in the back row, or it would run the off finisher, the mill one to burn that level, just to try and proc more instances of cancel burns.
Yeah, I think the finisher for Bang Dream, it's going to steal a lot of headlines because it's pretty unique, right? You don't see a lot of finishers that do This specifically, the passing of the cancel burns is particularly interesting. The ceiling is extremely high, especially when you like the back row that you talk about, where you can just like add additional cancel burns to an end of attack phase burn too. Right? Is that end of attack phase? Beginning of encore step?
Yeah, start of Encore step, pay
Start of
2 to
encore
burn
step burn.
2.
Yeah. So you can just have that as well as just another way to potentially do even more damage. The thing that makes this work, I think, is in opposition to some of these other finishers we've seen in recent years. This has a very, very high ceiling, but it also comes with a very steady floor. Cancel burn just gets you there. And having the ability to not only have 3 different units with cancel burn, but also 2-1 stock swap. It makes it very difficult to not die to this thing unless you are playing defensive counter. Will kill you if you're at level 3, and it probably will kill you if you are deep into level 2.
It gives Bang Dream for the longest time to not have the best ability to really go for game from distance. Uh, Both of these finishers now have given Bang Dream the ability to kind of like just go for distance outside of just the regular stock swap Fumio, like a burn 4 potentially.
And you have the benefit of just being able to hang out at level 2 for as long as you need to. It's so easy to loop this healer because of all the stock that you've built up from that level 1 combo, which you are looping. It's a bar combo with a built-in recycling engine. So you get to play this level 1 combo over and over and over again. You're constantly, adding cards to hand, getting through your deck quickly because Maguro is fine, but also jamming cards into your stock, clean cards into your stock. So your stock is going to be clean. Your refresh is going to be good. Like you said, you're not going to overplus. And then you could spend a bunch of that stock on healing because all of your heals are 1 stock. So that when you get to the finisher, it's very easy to have the stock you need to set up a big finisher turn and have access to stock swap.
hmm Not to mention that finisher comes out early. If you're playing, say, some matchup like the Mirror in particular, uh, where you can just sit there and coast and coast and coast until one player drops stock swap and finisher. The 2-1 effectively, as long as it can score a reverse at 11-5 with a climax in the back row. As long as that card can consistently score a reverse, it will effectively infinitely plus itself because it's a time machine. That then also reduces the cost of your finisher by a stock, or like you pay that stock way ahead of time. So the deck has tools at every point in the game that makes it comparable or better than almost every deck in the format. I will say there are better level 1 combos in the format, notably Modernia and Chloe, I think, are actual better level 1 combos. They just don't have a lot of the other tools to abuse in the mid game uh, that Bang Dream quite has, as well as the 0 game that Bang Dream has.
2 turns of basically any level 1 combo are better than 1 turn of the best level 1 combo. So, as much as, this Maguro type, check 4, that again is strictly better than Maguro because it can stock. It also has the benefit of just being so easy to loop. Like you always have a play. It's so easy to get this on the board. Even if you don't have the bar in hand, you're going to be able to at least present this board over and over again very easily without having to use a lot of resources.
hmm Now, I will say the salvage lists can feel quite tight. You do want to, like, in terms of what you're fitting in, uh, there's like one open slot that you want to fill with like 3 or 4 different things. Whether it's the climax fix, like the climax, like check 3 for a climax, whether it's an anti-change counter, whether it's uh another piece of top end tech like the bouncer or the burner that also grabs a climax. Uh, The salvage lists can feel a little bit tight, and that can also kind of be said for the Tamori lists. Uh, Probably they feel a little bit more loose because of you don't really need to be running this 2-1 that changes into your finisher. I will say something that we don't see a lot of, considering how strong Bane Dream is, specifically the Dolores. Dolores has a really hard time into Neg Soul in particular. Uh, it runs one copy of a bouncer. It can only remove one lane at level 3, unless it clocks that piece, and then it gets a level down for ditch a card as an alarm effect. So sort of similar to how the chainsaw one has the alarm effect, I believe. It only has like one lane of removal uh, on like a 3-2 body, and that can struggle very hard into some it's very good at dealing with stuff like Shauna or like a Modernia that's on the board, but it struggles a lot into something like a Sora next soul that sits like big enough to hold its own, as well as provides this global targeted Negsoul ability. Granted, at that point, Bang Dream can just play to heal down over and over and over again until Negsoul either whiffs their climax or something else goes wrong or stock swap becomes the best option. The problem at that point is then going to in a 35-minute rule set.
I also think we're going to see a lot of this going forward too, especially towards the end of the season with trios. We saw Bang Dream at about 15% of the room, which when like the max percent you can get is 33. You're looking at about half the room being Bang Dream at that point. I don't think half the room is going to be Bang Dream, but it's going to be well represented going into this fall season.
I feel pretty confident saying that for the first part of BCS, I think you're looking at probably close to 30% Bang Dream, 20%, maybe 25% Nikkei, and then everything else is going to be kind of whatever. But I think half the room is going to be Bang Dream Nikkei, maybe more.
Yeah, especially since both Nikkei and Bang Dream are so self-contained in their one release.
Mm.
Bang Dream being notably only really needs Fumio if you're in blue as like a one of, which is incredibly difficult to get. I will say, but like you don't need to run the green Mocha Riki in Bang Dream. They have a perfectly playable on play Riki in red in the set, as well as an on death Aqua style Riki in red in the set as well. So you can play both the on play or on death versions for just as much value right out of the box.
Yeah, that is, I think, something that's important is that, like you said, they are self contained within their own releases, which made it a whole lot easier to get a hold of Bang Dream, right? You had to spend $300 on a playset one time, and now you have all of it, pretty much.
Yeah, if it was even $300 exactly. I will say one more note for Bang Dream that this is less vital, but it's something you should be aware of. The resource value going from 0 to 2 is so good in this list that the Bang Dream player can play almost any top end from Bang Dream, any of like the historic top ends from Bang Dream, uh, and it will probably function. Birdcage Yukina definitely on the table. I would not ever think about bringing like Birdcage to a 2025 tournament. But things like the anniversary salvage Kasumi package that says you can't get burned on your opponent's turn, that is fully playable. If as long as you have three, it's like two or more other anniversary characters on the board. That's fully capable when your three finishers on the board are three anniversary trait. Same thing goes for the anniversary Yukina. That's either a on reverse burn 2 or a top check for a burn 4. Uh, that also is quite good if you just want to go the distance. The Tamori is probably one of the best ones in general in terms of an alternative to Dolores. just because the potential of dealing 7 instances of burn 2 is really, really strong, as we've seen with full power Bunny Girl when that was allowed. That many instances of burn 2 is a very strong finisher. But they, in theory, can run anything they want at the top end, and it would probably just work. Including anything from like Mocha to Anniversary to the weird thing that like clock kicks and restands the one unit like 3 times and like swings 5 times and has 3 clock kicks.
So this set's gonna get hit, and because this is a season preview, we should talk about what that's gonna look like. What what if anything is the JP restriction on this deck, Braden? And what do you anticipate will happen sometime over the winter? It's going to be sometime probably in the January February window, I would think is when we'll see this hit, but
Yeah.
tell me what you think.
Yeah, so the immediate hit is to port the Japanese list over. Notably, they lifted free fresh counter because they printed it from the choice restriction list. Japan added the changer for the level 1 combo, so you no longer get to run 8 copies of it, to the choice restriction list with stock swap, with stock swap event. And that effectively is what we'll get. Japan, I believe, still has Fumio technically on that list as well. But the big thing is effectively the stock swap plus changer. We obviously don't have the Cosme promo. Please give me the Cosme promo so I can play Warehouse again. Yeah, it's mostly just a soft ban on the changer, effectively, is what that ends up being. I do know some players in Japan have messed around because there is a blue on a stock swap from Roselia on a level 3 body. It's like, it's a pretty expensive one. I don't remember if it was on attack or not. It might have been on play. But I know that was a consideration just because you have the resources to pay for it. But typically people will choose stock swap just because of the 2-1 stock swap profile is such a powerful card.
Yeah,
And then the combo still functions. You just have 4 copies and you get to run all types of other stuff in your deck.
right. Now you actually get to tech in more stuff at the top and maybe actually do a little bit more playing around stuff as opposed to shoring up the consistency of the mid game, which is still like it's still a level 1 combo on bar. Like that still got plenty of potential for looping.
Yeah, notably this set also has Rico that was printed, just on play Rico as a profile. So pretty easy to pick up level 1s off Rico. Brainstorm's really good in the set as well. Pretty easy to jam multiple copies in the back row.
So yeah, even when the set gets hit, there will be options. They could always change that, right? They could always do the thing that they seem to be liking to do in English right now, which is limiting finishers to 2. But that doesn't seem to be the thing that makes Bang Dream really cook. And if you
No,
limited, say, Dolores to 2,
it's
then
like
everyone
everyone
would
would
just
just
pivot
push
to Tamori.
Tamori.
So there's only so much that you can do. I'm curious to see if if Bushy Road International is paying attention, which is always debatable, how they will feel about the ability to spam the healer over and over again. That to me is the thing that I think is the most impressive part of this package is just how easy it is to spam this healer over and over again, given the resource generation and given, just how good the profile itself is. So I'm curious. I don't think they would hit it just because I think they would rather copy JP's homework. But if it becomes like if the narrative around this set amongst the player base becomes, yeah, the Mortis is the issue, the Mortis is the problem, then I wonder if Bushy Road would see that and maybe think
Yeah,
about it. But I mean,
I
again,
will.
probably not. I doubt it, but
I will say that card probably puts a target on its back. and especially as a choice restriction with certain other profiles. I could see a choice between that and the level 1 combo. I can see a three-way choice between that, the level 1 combo, and Buns. The 0-2 profile, I could see a choice where that ends up somewhere. Most of the other profiles have some other kind of alternative to them, like all the
Right.
finishers. Like you can swap one finisher in for another finisher.
I don't think anyone thinks that the finishers are the issue in Bang Dream. Like the thing that makes it better than everything else. They're good finishers. They're very good finishers. But I don't think anyone's looking at them going, this is the problem, when you can see the entire package.
Yeah.
So I think that's a pretty solid overview of Bang Dream. Let's have a look at Nikkei. The list is typically referred to as Modernia Biscuit, but that's a bit of a misnomer, as we talked about a couple of weeks ago. The big card is the Alice. Like, the Alice is the most important card in this list. Like Bang Dream, its maybe most oppressive profile is an early play healer. It's an early play healer that kicks whatever it reverses to the top of the opponent's deck. So it pluses to hand. It's more expensive to play, obviously, but it has the additional advantage of having like a soul trigger the way that most healers do. Level 1 combo is extremely good. It's a Rico that can also stock charge in a deck that, unlike Bang Dream, is playing a bunch of high level cards with soul triggers. So reasonably likely to hit. You've also got these just kind of wacky profiles like the front row brainstorm, the rest 2. It's a 7k that basically turns your back row into a check 5 brainstorm, search brainstorm. And of course, you have the Modernia, which is on its own not too crazy. It's an elbow drop with a pitch 2 4-card Icy Tail on it, but it enables the ubiquitous level 3 free tap counter. It's just good, right? And even the tap counter, like, if it doesn't get to do its Modernia thing, if the Modernia is off the board for some reason, it is still a +6 counter. This is a very interesting package. It almost doesn't feel cohesive. Like, you'll see lists that run one copy of its supposed finisher with the biscuit, but it's almost running empty standby and just running this like extra thing that can potentially burn 4 if you slam the standby. And then you have the Sin in there as well that you can cheat out off the elbow drop at the beginning of your opponent's draw phase, pay 5, choose one of your opponent's characters, tap it, burn X. Like, okay, you just shut off one of your opponent's things and you get to do an additional burn. Pretty good. This is a deck that thinks it gets to untap at the end of every one of its opponent's turns, and it's right more than it's wrong in that assumption.
So it's a solid list, very consistent actually. Being able to kind of ramp up, play into its mid game, have it present a pretty decent sized board, as well as playing into a lot of the things that make decks good. If I sense like in a sense like the standby augments the cards that are going to be already on field. You have good profiles. The standby just helps bring those to another level.
Like Brandon said, it's deceptively consistent for like what when you look at like the deck list, it doesn't look like the most consistent thing. It looks like it's trying to do way too much, but it's able to do exactly what it wants to do every game. Typically, a lot of the like consistency comes out of stuff like the Rappy bounce back with just draw ditch stapled to it. It runs plenty of top 2 rearrange, so it can always hit the Modernia combo like at a very consistent basis. Because you want to field these Alices on the board and you want them to be big, you do need some amount of stock generation to do it. So the whole name of the game in like for level 1 is just to build up like the not like a ton of stock, but you want some amount of stock to be able to drop healer, maybe a second healer or some other tech piece, or throw off a brainstorm at level 2. But you want to get Alice on the board. You want to be resolving probably a turn or 2 of Modernia combo. Draw Ditch notoriously is really good at drawing the climax when you need it, especially if you don't draw it. Weiss is a game having effectively at the start of every turn the capacity to draw 3 Ditch 1. Uh, it's clock It's draw clock, draw two, but you effectively process 3 cards off the top of your deck at the start of every turn if you want. Draw ditch and double draw ditch lets you go to that 4th and 5th card, which if you can get into like second deck, that's a lot of dig to find a climax to drop. Both climaxes are actually good to drop, especially at level 2. You can start building up the wall and like all the oppressive end game pieces if you want, if you have the standby, or you can go for the turn of climax if you are, or if the combo if you're still level 1, if you draw the salvage.
And also, a lot of your good targets for standby, like you have, so you don't lean into a 2-2 game much, right? But even at level 1, you have the 2-2 that really stays in the back row, and then you have the 2-1 that you can sack and pay 1 to bounce an opponent's character. A lot of the stuff that you're going to get off of your standby triggers in this list is stuff that you can sit in the back row and you don't care if Bang Dream locks it down. You don't care if Arachno Trainer hits the board. Because this is stuff that you were going to leave in your back row anyway. Right? So like if you bring in the Sin off a standby trigger, you don't care. It sits in the back. Right? If you bring in the 2-2 or the 2-1, even if you bring in the Modernia, like bringing in an extra copy of Modernia just to sit in the back row, so now you maybe have 2 of them on the board for tap counter purposes. Like, yeah, you just protect yourself in that way.
It's a 1k1 deck that just happens to have 4 standby triggers in it, which is the proper way to play the 4 standby split decks. I think we saw the last time I remember a good split standby, like a split climax lineup between standby and a normal one, was like Kaguya, and that
Yeah.
had the standby on the level 1 combo, which felt really bad in terms of damage output.
Yeah. Well, it also felt bad because you're playing it on the board at 1, and now your level 2 standby targets in that set were not amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So if those had been switched, it would have felt a whole lot better to, not have to slam the standby, and you could instead, if you had the extra standby in hand, you could wait, or you could leave it in the deck, hopefully, and rather trigger it later in the game. Kaguya
Oh.
wishes it had this, but hey, it's unbanned now, so it's okay. The list feels incongruent. The list does not look and feel like it makes sense when you just look at it. I do recommend Carmen's guide to this deck, including like deep dives into matchups. We'll link it in the description. I think that's a very useful guide to playing this deck well, and also to understand how it works so that when you play into it, you know what your lines are. Like your lines might be might be limited, but you have some. There are outs to some of these things.
Mm-hmm.
So
notably, this is what like the primary reason to run a bouncer in 2025.
Yep.
This Modernia and tap counter.
+6 counter is a lot less scary than tap counter. As much as +6 soul counter does suck, it's still it is not a game ender. Whereas tap counter can just shut you off and end the game. So, and they're usually not running more than a couple copies of the Modernia. You might see some lists that have a third, but usually there's only one Modernia to get off the board. And they're not going to, the Nikkei player isn't going to be so concerned about holding up tap counter that they're going to prioritize getting the second Modernia out. If they trigger the second Modernia onto the board, then they trigger the second Modernia onto the board. But that's not going to be their priority. If anything, their first standby trigger priority is probably going to be Sin.
Board presence with the top kicking, with the top deck kick, is the number 1 priority typically.
If you go for the kill, you best not miss. You're probably going to have one good shot to kill Nikkei. All right, let's move down the line and talk about the decks that were once great but are now not. And we'll start with Quince. 8 standby Quince, like the funeral is over, the body is buried. There's only so much more to say about Nino at this point. It's just it can't do it anymore. It's been hit too many times. It's too easy to play into. It has too many things it has to deal with. Bang Dream runs 4 copies of Arachno Trainer, so anything it standbys out to the back row is just not going to move the entire game. Like, it feels bad, but this list is not present anymore for reasons beyond its control. It's a good deck when it has access to its pieces. Busherwood said you don't get to play this deck anymore.
Hmm. Notably, the movie top end that nobody likes to run does stand itself in the front row when you play it with the standby. So funny that doesn't get hit. But yeah, it's all the 2/2. It's the level 2 plays that get hit really hard by the Bang Dream lockdown. On top of losing neg 3 soul counter in this format, neg 3 soul counter would work wonders against Dolores. But yeah, that's on the choice restriction list. And I think the Foolish Burial is far too powerful to not be running as your choice. Yeah, just kind of hit too many times. It couldn't take it. So probably like you can still see movie lists that run like the burn counters and the heal 2 counter. Yeah, so like the burn backup and then the heal 2 counter. And then also it is just on cancel, pay 2, pitch 2, burn 4. Uh not tied to a climax. It can just do that whenever it feels like, whenever you cancel some damage. So it's like it is still like it's still a good standby deck. We've been seeing the last weekend of Summerfest, we saw some more Ayakashi than Quince for the first time, specifically the standby representative, the 8 standby representative. 8 standby Ayakashi notably far more susceptible to getting locked down on its circles than Quince ever was. But yeah, the hits I think are just a little overbearing, and which is why I think we'll see more of the salvage pants and choice packages if we do see any Quince at all.
And it really is a shame that they hit it, frankly, because they said they hit it in order to keep it in check when the other better stuff got hit. So it feels bad. Like as much as, I'm sure a lot of people are tired of playing into Quince or whatever. Quince is not oppressive. It's good, but it's certainly not oppressive. It would not, even at full strength, Quince would not be a top 2 deck in this format. So I don't know, but whatever.
Out of us three, I think our general opinion is that 8 pants is the go-to Quince list at this point. It's not pure Miku waifu. They throw in a handful of other stuff in there. The pants package with all of the marker compression, as well as being another spicy tail, by the way. Just the consistency of burn one, top end gets you there. Notably, it's a finisher that doesn't care about stock swapping just because burn one is instances of 1. So the lack of stock swap doesn't hurt it as much as, say, the 8 salvage list would.
It's
Hmm.
a lot less volatile than your average Icy Tail finisher, just because the amount of damage that it's doing is not dependent on the number of climaxes on the bottom of your opponent's deck. You just need to hit 1, and if you hit 1, things happen.
Yep.
So I
Almost
think that
guaranteed it will be
matters.
burn one. Yeah.
It definitely, like, when you do hit, what you're gonna get out of your hit is more consistent, because it's not dependent on how many climaxes you hit. It's just dependent on you just need to find 1.
Yep.
And it has access to charm. Like you
Yes.
get to play the neg 3 soul, so you have that really good piece of defense going into Bang Dream.
Yeah. So notably, this deck will jam enough red into it, into historically a green blue deck. Will jam enough red just to play charm. 8 salvage, it's the quintessential 1k1 deck with a very strong plusing level 1 combo. The finisher is still good enough to like see play. Kind of gets outvalued and out resourced by some of these other decks. Notably, has a much weaker 0 game than like something like Bang Dream and a few of these other decks below it. And then 8 choice having probably like the best mix of stuff here. Big early play board package that clears Nikke quite handedly, actually. Can sit defensively. The problem is, I think you just eat too much raw damage before you're able to really resolve your early play combo, and you can't sit on it nearly as long as you would want in the current format.
Yeah, I think that's an accurate assessment. That seems to be about the situation for Quince. 2 more to go through. Only one restriction for Bunny Girl, but it's a big one. The My to 2. And I think this, in combination with I could be playing something that isn't restricted, is what caused it to take that downturn near the end of the season. It didn't disappear entirely, right? It still topped in Georgia, got second place in Georgia, topped in Manchester, right? So it's still around. Definitely matters. The options that you have to replace the 2 lost slots are pretty immediate. You have the Restander in blue, you have the Nodoka that can just mill your opponent's deck on play. You have the Kaide healer, like the OG.
The OG one stock, one stand healer and healer.
Right. So, like, you have options. The list still works just fine, obviously, because the package itself hasn't been touched, but fundamental trait of these spicy tail finishers is that you have to triple them to get game ending value out of them, typically, unless you super high roll. And my can high roll, but my can also seriously low roll. So you need to find a way to push the extra damage. And I think that most people would rather play 3 lanes of Dolores than try to muscle through with 2 lanes of Mai.
Mm-hmm. We mentioned it with Bang Dream and Nikke both being like one set packages, like the whole decks in one set, basically. Bang Dream notably having one profile that is from the anniversary set that got bought out as egregiously expensive. Very similar story to what happened with like Mai. You only needed to buy set 3 for Bunny Girl, and there was like just the Kaide early play was the really expensive card. And now it's finishers limited to 2 because it was overperforming according to UGC, which it probably was. I think out of the 3 decks that got hit, this is the one that can recover the easiest. I still think Double Mai sees enough cards. You kind of think about it, you're seeing 12 cards still, which is the same as like 3 normal Icy Tails. It's the same amount of cards that you process. And then the burn 2s, it's like pay 1, pitch 1 for any number of burn 2s, I think is still kind of worthwhile. I doubt you ever fully whiff like a Mai and then pay 1, pitch 1, burn 2 is just marring. That's why I think Mai will stick around for a while still. But yeah, you did say it's opportunity cost. Why would I play Mai when I can go play Bang Dream? Besides the fact that I like the show much better and I like playing with memory. It's like those are the 2 big reasons to switch or to stay on Mai, I guess.
And I think hitting that part was the big part there because I think this is your memory deck.
4 to 5 cards in memory is good memory compression. Like it's uninteractive memory compression.
Yeah, and it's
So
not like anyone's playing memory dump.
Playing for the memory compression here and playing the deck for that aspect of it, and then just my being kind of like the cherry on top. I definitely could see players still playing this one much more frequently. So like I agree that this was the least hit and also probably the one we're going to see the most of the ones that made the ban list this time around.
I would agree with that assessment as well. I was higher on SDS when the ban list hit because I thought that people would stick to it, frankly, and they did not. They definitely did not. As soon as the ban list hit, Hendrickson was gone. It had not a single top after restriction, if I remember correctly. I'm looking through it now.
Of Henderson.
The Elizabeth package is very much out of play now.
as it should be, that combo was egregious.
Combo's pretty nuts. Just being able to plus every time you slam Stock Soul on your Brainstormer and be able to do it twice, basically as long as you picked up the Stock Soul, is pretty nuts. So I don't think we're going to see SDS basically at all. We didn't see it after the restriction to Elizabeth. I don't think we're going to see it. I just don't think it's going to be there. I initially thought that people were going to try to tough it out and make it work with the 2 copies. That was not true. That did not happen. The allure of the top end was not enough. And I think, again, in part, why play restricted SDS when you can play unrestricted Nikkei, unrestricted Bank Dream? I think that factors into a lot of people's calculus.
I think it gets out resourced at that point. Like I think you're getting too much benefit from the other top decks that you lost with SDS.
Yeah. Whereas if
Mhm.
you had 4 Elizabeth, you could keep pace without having
Yeah.
to fix for your 2 copies of Elizabeth. You don't have to go and find them, pay that initial input to then get your Elizabeth benefits. You don't you're not just going to draw both copies of Elizabeth the way that you would when you're running 4. It's just so much easier when you have 4.
Mhm.
So that difference matters when you're going up against a resource monster like Bang Dream.
Yep. The other big thing is I've heard people consider pivoting off the Elizabeth to like say the bar level 1 or just anything else in the set. When your deck and all the plays that you've been making are so used to having 4 stock turns every turn and then losing like say if you resolved 3 Elizabeth combos per in a game, that's 3 stock that you're losing. That's a whole extra turn's worth of resource in terms of stock thresholds that you can't generate anymore, especially after your 1 stock Fumio got hit. And this is, I think, one of the big differences between Seven Deadly at this point finally and Chainsaw, which had very similar level 0 profiles, is that one, the combo itself in Chainsaw only needs the 1 copy, and the level 0 power lets you have the 4 or 5 stock turns in the early game. It's just the same thing that Mai has, where the finisher power is significantly reduced, as opposed to the the mid game and engine reduced.
So that is where we're going to leave off for now. In 2 weeks, we're going to talk about the rest of it. We're going to have a full tier list. We're going to talk about all the things, all the decks, and what among them specifically can play into a Bang Dream Nikkei meta and still have a place. So we're going to talk about that all at length in 2 weeks. But that's going to be it for now. Thank you so much for joining us. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe, and have a good one.
We'll see you then.
See ya.